Thank you.
So good afternoon, everybody. First of all, thank you that I was invited to come to present our projects, which is for me part of my life because I spent about 10 years on this project. And you can see on this left-hand side picture that is well known worldwide, and the right-hand side picture, which is a green field now. We have about 15 years plus who went through. Today, I will concentrate only on lessons learned. So what was the lessons that we took out from this project? I would say good lessons, but as well bad lessons. And by the way, we decided to make a book on this project. This book was published, so it's an internal book for Novartis, specifically for the Novartis people and for all the landfill projects that we have. But at the same time, we can distribute some of these books depending who is demanding that. So I'm ready, and John as well, to receive your ask to get a book. So I know it's very difficult after lunch to listen to some presentations. So I will try not to be too boring, that the digestion goes well. But I think such a project is sometimes, I would not say boring, but it's very technical. We were confronted not only on technical part, but as well on governance part, as well on method. And to be honest, when we start this project, we did not find any project in these with this size on the world who are doing the same what we expected and what was the intention to do. So now. So first of all, you see where this project is located. So it's affecting 3 countries. I think it's clear it's between Switzerland, Germany, and France. And this is as well a kind of constraint in this project, because when you have to deal with authorities, you cannot only deal with French authorities because it's on the French side, but you have to deal as well with the Swiss authority and the German authorities. And I can tell you, we have not the same regulations. So I heard during these 2 days what you want to do in EU and so on. I can tell you, work on that first. And to be honest, when you are looking what Germany is doing and France, we are pretty close. So we base our approach on a risk assessment, risk identification, and so on. But it's not the case in Switzerland. Switzerland is based only on value, and in Switzerland, 0 is 0. So if you have few milligrams, that's not good. You have to have 0 at the end. In the same way, concerning the groundwater, this was a little bit easier on the Switzerland side as on the French side and in the German side. So this is why we decided to apply a new rule, which is the Novartis rule. And the Novartis rule is take the more constraints from each country and put these in place. This is why this project is, I would say, a kind of pilot. The reason for rehabilitation is clear. I think what was expected, and this is derived from what I just said, is that we want to have, that we would have the possibility to use this land without constraints. So the objective of rehabilitation was residential with private garden, how we call that. So that's a specific scenario. What is as well important to mention, so Novartis took the responsibility to remediate this site, but Novartis said no, liability on that, no responsibility on that. The only reason why Novartis did that is because they sometimes owned the site, but they decided to remediate and to put all the costs on that without having any responsibility on that. That's very important. So the chronology of this project, again, we started from the left-hand side, the well-known picture, to the right-hand side, the green picture. In between, we had several steps. One step is when the site was acquired by Sando. It's a former company of Novartis. And it was decided to build a water treatment station. And as you can see, what happened at that time, because before PC UK, Eugene Kuhlmann has put all or some of the Lindane mixed with concrete in the soil. And when it was decided to build this wastewater station, all the sites were mixed again. And this is very important because it was then very difficult to know where we have which concentration. Okay, then the wastewater station was working until 2011, and then it was decided to dismantle that and then to remediate the site completely. And you see the remediation started in I think from a planning point of view, it was 2005, but really started in 2011, and I took over on 2012 until 2019. The first step on key lessons. The first important lessons that we were facing is the objective and the clear requirements needs to be written, and it needs to be agreed what we want to do. And these bases will build the roadmap for the whole project. So it's very important that everybody which is around the table, it's not only the owner, but it's as well the stakeholders, as well the neighborhood should really be clear what we want to do and how we want to proceed. Then in the project, we need a clear governance structure, means we need to have the several platforms where we have operational platform, but as well decisional platform. And it's important that this works very well. At the end, it's the management who decides, but it's as well the neighborhood and the stakeholders who decides with that. And that's very important. And then we have a big issue during the process of this project is we had to stop sometime these projects. It was in 2013. This is why he took so long, because we lost about 20 months. We were stopping completely the project. The reason for that is because we had a lack of dust. And this dust, it was in a period who was very warm. It was in summer with a big wind. And this wind brought the dust on the other side of the Rhine, on the Swiss side. And with this, we dealt the first time with the authority, with the Swiss authority. And I can tell you, when the Swiss authority comes on your side, it's a little bit complicated. But I think it was really necessary, and we felt it's necessary to stop, and this is why Novartis decided themselves to stop this project and to reconsider all the process, reconsider the whole measure which needs to be taken. And this is why the enterprise who is working on that, the provider that will be selected, it's a key element on this project, because you have everything in this remediation area. You can find different companies with different competencies. They need not only the technical competencies, but they need as well the governance structure and so on. So they should mirror what you have internally in the company. And then last but not least, which is very important, is the open mindset of the team. we need to be open. And I would say we need to be a little bit, have humility. We are not the king of the road. I think we need really to learn, having this learning culture. We need to be open to listen to others, because it's very important. And you see in the 2 days, we heard a lot of things which are very interesting. And I can say, if I would have had a network like that 10 years ago, the project would be very easier as it was. Huh? And I would say on the top, what is important, don't underestimate the complexity of such a project. Often we say, okay, you make excavation, you put these in a truck and you put something in a treatment site. No, it's not really that. Huh? It's more as that. And we should be conscious on that. Huh? So the remediation framework, I would not go really through. I explained, so we went as a guideline, the environmental code of France. But as I said before, it was the basis, but we really supplemented with the Swiss codes, with the Swiss regulation, but as well with the German regulations. And we took the best of all three, not the best to ease the situation, but the best to be sure that we will comply with everything in the 3 countries. The rest is, as we know, how we proceed with the remediation goal, with the preventive residual health risk, and so on. And at the end, we control what we have achieved and how the project has brought in a health, in doing a health risk assessment. The rehabilitation preparation, this is an important topic, and why is that important? When we took over, it was not clear to us what is really in the soil. So we were knowing it's HEH, but in which concentration and where do we find what? That was not so clear to us. So it's very important that as a first instance, we evaluate all the historical data, that we ask people who were working, for example, on the Stey site or before by Eugene Kuhlmann, what they remember. I think it's very important, even more because we started this project without having make only investigation on the project. And not making investigation and submit a budget for a project is a nightmare, I can tell you. And we will see that a little bit later. So it's very important that you make an exhaustive investigation before starting. It's also important that you look the benchmark, that you find worldwide this type of project, that to discuss with the people around the table, and you ask questions and you find out what fits best to your project. At that time, we did this benchmark investigation, but I can tell you, I did not find really projects who had the same situation, and so we are in this situation. We were a little bit pioneer on that and piloting on that. So the second step on lessons learned, and that's important. So you need during the whole project, and this was something what we learned, is to make a constant and ongoing risk assessment. You have to, we made a meeting on a weekly basis, and we were thinking, where do we take risk, where we are exposed, where we are not exposed, where can we take the risk, where can we not take the risk. And that's very important to do that during the whole process, during the whole project. So you have to identify and to assess what is here. What is also important, you have to clearly define before starting any work on a site, on such a site, you have to define all the thresholds. It's very important, and what we had with this regard was an issue, because we did not find in the literature which exists any threshold for air, for dust, and so on. So this is why we had to elaborate that, with the Swiss authority and the French authority, we defined together this threshold, which then built the basis where you can, all the control system which are behind will be controlled according to this basis. Because we have then to monitor what's going on, and we need to define clearly when we are in the green, when we are in the yellow or in the red, and when we have to stop. What is very important here also, you have to define what kind of action you have to take when it comes to go over this threshold. The authorities is an important part. We did not include the authorities from the beginning, only the French authorities. But at the end, we had a weekly meeting with the authorities, with the Swiss authorities and with the French authorities to go through where do we stand, what are the next steps. Even they validated some commissioning. So if we put some equipment in place, they validated the test sheets, that we are clear that we go in that direction. And that's very important. And at the end, we felt we are a team with the authorities, and this helps a lot. The site was completely confined. That's normal. So we had under pressure, -4 Pascal. This was as well monitored. So we had graphic on a weekly basis to see if we can stay with the -4 Pascal. Just to give you, in fact, what we did, the site was 55,000 square meters. And if you go to the groundwater, is about 12 meters. This means that you have about 660,000 cubic meter. And from these 660,000 cubic meter, we excavated about 450,000 cubic meters. So 70% of the earth, of the soil which was here was excavated and treated. And you see, this is the mapping that we did when we had the first investigation. You see, we have on the central part, we had some really high concentration. It was concentration above 80%. And then the yellow part was some low concentration below 11%. This was the first picture, but I can tell you at the end, the picture was not the same, because we digged with about 70 drilling, and it was not enough. So the question is, when you make drilling, do you need to do more or less? It's very complicated because it depends really where you are drilling. And this is also because drilling is a cost factor. And the question is this cost factor related to what you can gain or not? In this case, we should have said, okay, we don't drill, we excavate everything. But we were not knowing what's coming. That's the point. So you can see we had several transport logistics. So the high concentration was on barrels, and it was taken on a truck. Then we had containers which were put on a train, and at the end we had as well a barge, so a cargo. We used completely the opportunity that we are close to the Rhine, and we use the Rhine. Even we extend our cargo in a twin cargo, which was about 180 meters long, and could at the end transport 5,500 tons in one shot. And that was very important to gain some time. So at the end, we excavated about 800,000 tons, and from this 800,000 tons, we eliminated on treatment side about 711,000. So 711,000 were practically 90% of that was transported to Amsterdam. Yeah. So as I said, so we used the Rhine. It was an opportunity for us, and I can tell you we gained a lot of time and money with that. It was only a period where the Rhine was very low, and the chip couldn't couldn't go on the Rhine, and we lost here as well 7 months. So if you count the 7 months and the 21 months before, we lost about 28 months of the time period 2012-2019. This is why we can say the project was about 5 years, in fact. The third point on lessons learned. So the estimation of volume is critical. It's really the estimation of volume who gives you the costs, which are the cost drivers. So you need to find a solution how you can estimate accurately the volume. I have no recipe, no, I cannot tell you. So it depends really on the site, but I think that's a key factor. You have to think on that. Proof of concept is very important, is before doing something, test it, make a pilot. So you have to check if what you was thinking about to do, it works or not. And as we had to stop the project, the first thing what we did, we need a proof of concept. So when we implemented all the new measures, we then started with a proof of concept before starting really on the productive side. And it helped a lot because you find out a lot of topic which you did not see before. Commissioning procedure, as I mentioned before, so we had a really commissioning procedures with the authorities and with the sign-off of the authorities. I think this helped a lot because with this you take more time, and you take the time to think about, and the authorities is a new eye who have a look, who overlook what you did, and this helps a lot. And we had also some technical aspects. So in the summer period, we reached temperature under the tent, which are around 60 degrees, and the benzene, for example, was very volatile, and we had to cooling down the tent. And then that the HCH and the TCB was condensating, and that we can put these on a hazardous waste. This is only one technical aspect. I felt it's important that I show that. Groundwater pumping, it's clear. During the whole period, we had to evaluate and to treat the water. It was the groundwater, but it was the rainwater. And so on. The air regeneration, the same. So we had a rigid extraction or network, and with carbon filter, that's really normal. And then around the site, so the air monitoring, it was as well the ambient of the site, but as well the remediation site. We were controlling these 20 hours, 7 days by 7. And we have determined what we want to control, how we want to control it, and what will be the action that we need to take in once we are going over the threshold. By the way, we never crossed these thresholds, never. And by the way, also when we had to stop this project, we had never danger for the people. So we never crossed any threshold with this regard, because we stopped before. The fourth topic, communication. Communication is a very important, critical topic. It's the communication toward the public, which is very important. You have to take and to tell them the truth. You have to explain if you have something which is not good, which is bad. You have to tell them. So that's the situation, and this is how we want to correct that. That's very important. At the beginning of the project, it was decided not to communicate to the public, but I think that's very important, and that's important in each project. So you need to be really candid and open and communicate to the people. The infrastructure is important, that they are complying with the specification. Maybe it's something logic, but sometimes it's not the case. We had this issue with our tents, for example, that the tents were not robust enough at the beginning, and we had to reinforce all the tents, and they were not complying with the specification. Readiness assessment, that's very, very important. You should ask yourself and make some exchange to see where we have some questions which are open, which are not answered. You have to try to answer all the questions before starting anything. And even when we are talking about smelling, because we have a lot of smelling, which is not a danger, but each people has a different level of tolerance, and you need to be careful on that. And you need to be ready to show that you have no problem on that. And the localization is important. So I started with that. The regulations are changing from one country to the other. And now I'm very happy to show you a green picture. And it's today how it looks like. It's nice. I'm very happy. From my office, I see on this side, and I'm very happy. You see the Rhine is as well green on this picture. Is very even the Rhine became green. You see, and we made as well some study on the groundwater. So we estimate that normally from a groundwater point of view, we should have between 8 years and 40 years. We should find drinking water normally, but it depends really on the assessment and the parameters how you do that. Huh? But we are in a good way. We are monitoring the groundwater. We are monitoring the site at the moment with the French authorities, and it goes in the right direction. So thank you for your attention.